Just when Sophie thought the story of the storage unit had finally ended, a classified museum report arrives at her doorstep revealing something impossible. One of the paintings she sold is missing from the official archive, and in its place is a completely different artwork that experts insist never existed. Before she can understand what it means. The same black SUV returns, and this time the man inside is no longer asking about the paintings, he's asking about her mother's name. Before we start, make sure you join our YouTube family by subscribing to the channel. If you enjoy emotional mystery stories filled with hidden secrets, shocking twists, and life-changing discoveries, don't forget to like this video, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your country. We love connecting with you all around the world. Now get ready, because today's story begins with a forgotten storage unit, a desperate girl, and a secret that will change everything she thought she knew about her life. Let's get into the story. Sophie Bennett was only 20 years old when life seemed to run out of second chances. 3 months earlier, she had buried the only person who had ever believed in her, her mother. The apartment they had shared together was small and worn, but to Sophie it had always felt like home. After the funeral, unpaid bills began arriving faster than she could open them. Rent notices appeared on the front door. Phone calls from creditors never stopped. She worked every temporary job she could find, cleaning offices, serving coffee, stocking shelves at night. But every paycheck disappeared almost as quickly as it arrived. One rainy afternoon, her landlord knocked on the apartment door. His expression told her everything before he even spoke. "I'm sorry, Sophie. You've been given every extension I could manage." She nodded quietly. "I understand." She packed everything she owned into 2 old suitcases and a few cardboard boxes. There wasn't much. Some clothes, family photographs, a worn blanket that had belonged to her mother, and one small notebook filled with handwritten advice her mother had collected over the years. Before locking the apartment for the final time, Sophie opened the notebook. One sentence caught her eye. "When life closes every door, don't stop walking. Sometimes your future is hiding behind one you never planned to open." She smiled sadly. At the time, it felt like nothing more than comforting words. She had no idea how true they would become. For the next several weeks, her aging sedan became her home. She parked near 24-hour stores where the lights made her feel a little safer. Every morning, she folded her blanket, changed clothes inside public restrooms, and searched for work. Every evening, she returned to the same car. Some nights she cried. Most nights, she simply stared through the windshield, wondering how everything had fallen apart so quickly. Yet despite everything, she refused to quit. Her mother had survived worse. She could survive this too. One Saturday morning, she noticed a sign outside a storage facility. "Public storage auction today." Curious, she walked inside. The parking lot was crowded with experienced buyers carrying clipboards and flashlights. They joked with one another while discussing antiques, collectibles, and resale profits. Sophie didn't belong there. She only wanted something to distract herself for an hour. The auctioneer opened one storage unit after another. Most sold quickly. Furniture, appliances, boxes of clothing, vintage tools. Experienced bidders confidently placed offers. Sophie simply watched. Near the end of the auction, only one unit remained. Unlike the others, its metal door stayed closed. The manager explained that the lock had never been removed after the previous owner stopped paying storage fees years earlier. Nobody knew exactly what remained inside. The bidders immediately lost interest. Probably trash. Waste of time. Too risky. People began walking away. The auctioneer sighed. "Final unit. Who'll give me $100? Silence. 80? Nothing. 50? Still nothing. Sophie looked down at the small envelope inside her pocket. Her remaining savings. Just enough money to survive another week. She should have walked away. Every logical thought told her to leave. Then she remembered her mother's notebook. Sometimes your future is hiding behind one you never planned to open. Before she could stop herself, she raised her hand. "I'll take it." Several bidders laughed. One older reseller shook his head. "Kid, you just bought yourself a dumpster." Heat rushed into Sophie's face. Maybe he was right, but somehow she didn't regret it. After signing the paperwork, the facility manager handed her the only key they had. "Good luck. You've got 24 hours to empty it." She nodded nervously. When everyone else had gone, Sophie stood alone before the sealed metal door. Her heart raced. She inserted the key. The lock clicked open. Slowly, the heavy door rolled upward. Dust floated through the sunlight. At first glance, everyone else had been right. Old furniture stacked carelessly, broken lamps, boxes filled with cracked dishes, rusted bicycles, torn suitcases. Nothing looked valuable. Sophie's shoulders dropped. She had spent her last money on junk. For several minutes, she simply stood there in silence. Then she remembered why she came. If nothing else, she could clean the unit and sell whatever little remained. She began moving furniture piece by piece. Most items were worthless. Some were broken beyond repair. Hours passed. The deeper she worked, the stranger something began to feel. Unlike normal storage units, everything seemed intentionally arranged, almost like someone had hidden something beneath the clutter. Near the back wall, she found an enormous wooden crate tucked behind several wardrobes. Unlike everything else, the crate wasn't damaged. Its brass corners still shined beneath years of dust. Across the top, someone had carved 4 words directly into the wood. "Do not discard." Sophie's heartbeat quickened. Carefully, she wiped away more dust. The crate had no shipping company markings, no owner's name, only a faded wax seal she had never seen before. She placed both hands against the heavy lid. It wouldn't move. It was locked. Not with an ordinary lock, with an old-fashioned iron mechanism unlike anything she recognized. She searched around the crate. Nothing. No key. No instructions. Only one small envelope wedged beneath the corner. Her name wasn't written on it. Neither was anyone else's. Across the front appeared just one handwritten sentence. "The right person will know when to open this." As Sophie turned the envelope over in her hands, footsteps echoed outside the storage unit. She looked toward the entrance. A well-dressed man wearing an expensive suit stood watching her from across the hallway. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't surprised. It looked as though he had been searching for that crate all along. Sophie slowly lowered the envelope. The man standing outside the storage unit didn't move. He simply watched her with calm, calculating eyes. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, he stepped closer. "You bought this unit today?" Sophie nodded cautiously. "Yes." He glanced past her toward the wooden crate hidden at the back. His attention lingered there longer than anywhere else. "That crate," he said quietly. "Would you be willing to sell it?" The question immediately made Sophie suspicious. He hadn't asked about anything else. Not the furniture, not the tools, only the crate. "How much?" she asked. Without hesitation, he opened his wallet and pulled out several thick stacks of cash. $5,000. Sophie's breath caught. $5,000. It was more money than she had seen in months. Enough to rent an apartment. Enough to buy food. Enough to finally stop sleeping in her car. For a brief moment, every problem in her life seemed to have an easy solution. The man smiled. "You don't even know what's inside." "Neither do you," Sophie replied. His smile faded slightly. "I know enough." Those words settled heavily in her mind. If he knew enough, then perhaps the crate was worth far more than $5,000. She slowly shook her head. "I'm sorry. It's not for sale." The man remained calm. "Think carefully." "I already have." He closed his wallet. "If you change your mind—" He handed her a business card, then quietly walked away. Sophie watched until he disappeared into the parking lot. Only after his car had driven away did she allow herself to breathe normally again. She looked back at the crate. "What are you hiding?" That evening, she continued cleaning the storage unit. Hidden beneath another cabinet, she found something unusual. An old leather toolbox. Inside, instead of tools, there were documents, receipts, auction records, shipping manifests dating back more than 40 years. One name appeared repeatedly: Samuel Whitmore. She had never heard it before. Yet every receipt seemed connected to the mysterious crate. Hours later, she finally found another clue. Inside an old coat hanging on a broken wardrobe was a tiny brass key attached to a faded leather tag. Across the tag, someone had written, "Crate number 7. Sophie's heart raced. She hurried back toward the crate. The brass key fit perfectly. For a moment, she hesitated. This crate had remained sealed for decades. Whoever packed it clearly wanted it protected. Slowly, she turned the key. Click. The heavy lock released. She carefully lifted the wooden lid. Inside, she didn't find gold. She didn't find stacks of cash. Instead, she found dozens of neatly wrapped oil paintings, each protected inside thick linen covers. At first, they looked ordinary, old, dusty, possibly worthless. Then she noticed small signatures painted in the corners. She didn't recognize them, but something about the careful packaging suggested they mattered. Beneath the paintings rested leather journals, letters, certificates, and one sealed document addressed to the finder. She carefully opened it. If you are reading this, then my collection has survived. Most people will believe these paintings are copies. They are wrong. Never sell them until they have been professionally authenticated. Sophie's hands trembled. She looked again at the artwork. Could it really be valuable? The following morning, she carried one, painting to a respected art restoration expert. The elderly woman examined it silently for several minutes. Then she removed her glasses. Where did you get this? I found it. The expert looked directly into Sophie's eyes. This, she paused, is not a reproduction. Sophie's heartbeat stopped. What does that mean? It means you're holding an original painting. How much is it worth? The expert hesitated. At auction. Possibly several $100,000. Sophie's knees nearly gave way. Several $100,000 for one painting. There were dozens still inside the crate. The expert looked concerned. You should be careful. Why? Because collections like this don't stay hidden forever. That afternoon, Sophie returned to the storage unit. Her mind raced with possibilities. Her life had changed overnight. But something else had changed, too. She noticed fresh tire tracks outside the storage building. The manager approached her. Miss Bennett, a gentleman came looking for you. The same one from yesterday? The manager nodded. He wasn't alone this time. Sophie's stomach tightened. How many? 3. She quickly locked the storage unit again. As she turned toward her car, she noticed another envelope tucked beneath the windshield wiper. There was no stamp, no address, only 6 handwritten words. You've opened something bigger than you know. Sophie stood beside her old car, staring at the anonymous envelope. The words echoed in her mind. You've opened something bigger than you know. A cold breeze swept through the nearly empty storage facility. For the first time since opening the crate, she wasn't thinking about money. She was thinking about danger. She looked around the parking lot. The black SUV from the day before was gone, but the feeling of being watched remained. Carefully, she folded the note and slipped it into her pocket. She drove directly back to the art expert's office. The elderly woman listened quietly as Sophie explained everything. The storage unit, the mysterious buyer, the paintings, the anonymous message. When Sophie finished, the expert closed the office door before speaking. There is something you need to understand. What? Collections like yours often disappear. Sophie frowned. What do you mean? Many years ago, priceless artwork vanished from private collections during financial crises. Some owners hid everything inside warehouses and storage units to protect them. She pointed toward one of the paintings. If your crate truly contains what I think it does, then someone has probably been searching for it for decades. Sophie's heartbeat quickened. So that man knew. The expert nodded slowly. I believe he did. Over the next several weeks, professional historians, museum specialists, and legal experts carefully examined every item inside the crate. One by one, the results arrived. The paintings were authentic. The journals documented decades of careful preservation. The certificates proved legal. Ownership had transferred to the storage unit owner. After years of abandonment, everything had been done legally. The Forgoten collection now belonged to Sophie. News spread quickly. Museums contacted her. Collectors submitted offers. Auction houses competed for the opportunity to represent the collection. But Sophie remembered the desperation she had lived through only weeks earlier. She remembered sleeping in her car, wondering whether she would eat the next day. So instead of rushing to sell everything, she made a different decision. She sold only a small portion of the collection. It was enough. Enough to buy a modest home. Enough to clear every debt. Enough to guarantee she would never be homeless again. The remaining artwork she loaned to museums, allowing thousands of people to enjoy pieces that had remained hidden for generations. People admired her decision. Some even called her foolish for not selling everything. But Sophie smiled every time she heard that. Money had once been all she wanted. Now, purpose mattered more. Months later, she returned to the storage facility one final time. The manager greeted her warmly. "You've changed a lot." Sophie laughed softly. "I've had a good teacher." "The paintings?" She shook her head. "My mother." Before leaving, she walked back inside the now empty storage unit. Sunlight streamed through the open door. The space looked ordinary again, almost impossible to believe it had once held something, capable of changing an entire life. She quietly whispered, "Thank you." Not to the unknown collector, not to Luck, to her mother. Because if she hadn't remembered those simple words written inside that little notebook, she never would have raised her hand at the auction. As Sophie reached her car, another familiar black SUV pulled into the parking lot. The same businessman stepped out. This time he smiled honestly. "I suppose congratulations are in order." Sophie nodded politely. "You knew what was inside all along." "I suspected." "Then why didn't you keep bidding?" He laughed quietly. "Because sometimes life chooses the right person." For the first time, Sophie believed him. He extended his hand. No hard feelings. She shook it. No. He looked toward the empty storage unit. "You know, I've attended auctions for 30 years. I've seen people become rich. I've seen people lose everything. But I've never seen anyone deserve it more." As he drove away, Sophie looked up at the bright afternoon sky. Only months earlier, she had been sleeping in a car with nothing but hope. Now she owned a home, a future, and a life her mother would have been proud of. She reached into her bag and opened the old notebook one last time. The same sentence greeted her. "When life closes every door, don't stop walking. Sometimes your future is hiding behind one you never planned to open." This time, she smiled through happy tears, because she finally knew exactly what her mother meant.